Sports fans, join the Rod Squad newsletter today. Stay ahead of the game with exclusive insights, updates, contests, and exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up for free today at rodpeterson.com. Always a treat, and I always appreciate him joining us. Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM NHL Radio. We've got a lot of NHL things to get through with Scott. Here's one that you might not have discussed lately, Scott. Howdy. Our poll question today is, who's the greatest Russian goaltender of all time? Our options are Sergei Bobrovsky, Vladislav Tretiak, Andrei Vasilevsky, or other. That's in alphabetical order so as to not display any bias. What would be your vote?
I would probably, Rod, have to lean towards Tretiak. It's difficult to say Tretiak, I know, because he never played in the best league in the world. And we've often thought, Rod, what would it have been like if Tretiak had had that dream come true to play for the team he always wanted to play for, the Montreal Canadiens, the team he did it to on New Year's Eve way back in the mid-1970s. What would that have been like? I think because of that, it's difficult to balance it, to say for sure it's Tretiak. As far as the NHL is concerned, I think there's no doubt it's Andrei Vasilevsky. The guy's going to work on his Hall of Fame speech, of course, the minute he's done playing here, and he's still got much more left to give for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I would say best NHL goaltender by far is Vasilevsky. The Big Cat's got that. But as far as the all-time greatest goaltender I've ever seen, and I think the greatest goaltender that the Soviets/Russians have ever produced, it's got to be number 20, Vladislav Tretiak.
Well, Tretiak's leading our polls on YouTube and Twitter for sure. You know what's nice is it's been 45 years at least since he's played like a meaningful game, Tretiak, and he's still leading the polls. That tells you, I think we have our winner.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, you think back, and I know you remember it too, Rod, when you think back about Soviet hockey and then into Russian hockey, they went through a bit of a hole between Tretiak and getting to the real top-flight NHL goaltenders that we've been watching for years now. I think they went through a bit of a down spell, whether it was going to be Mushkin, the guy who unexpectedly replaced him at Lake Placid back in 1980, whether it was Beloshenkin or Milnikov or whoever it was. They went through a handful of goalies before they finally settled on some consistent goaltending going back to the 1990s. So there was a bit of a black hole as far as Soviet/Russian hockey was concerned, because once Tretiak had to retire, they were looking for the next guy, and the next guy immediately wasn't there.
There's not a lot of doubt, I don't think, the game of the night in the NHL, well, it is Washington at Winnipeg. What do you think will go down at Canada Life Centre tonight?
Well, just getting word, it looks like Jacob Chychrun with his wrist injury is going to play tonight, so that's good news certainly for Washington. And why not? I mean, if you're celebrating an 8-year contract at $9 million per, you want to be in the lineup. Your wrist is just fine, of course, Rod, as you can start counting your money for years to come. And Chychrun has been that good for the Washington Capitals. And, you know, I think tonight looks like it sounds like it's going to be a matchup of great goaltenders and Logan Thompson versus Connor Hellebuck, unless we've missed something here. But, you know, you're talking about two of the three guys that would be nominated for the Vezina. I think everybody hands down still thinks it's Connor Hellebuck's trophy once again to lose, and he's not going to do that. So I think you look at this and you say, okay, we've got the top two clubs in the NHL. Who's going to win the President's Trophy? If Washington gets 2 points at Canada Life Centre tonight, boy, 4 points up on Winnipeg with a game in hand, you'd have to like the Capitals down the stretch to win the President's Trophy. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily equate to Stanley Cup playoff success, as we know, finishing first overall and winning the regular season. That being said, this Capitals team has been smooth sailing from start to finish this season. Even when they missed Ovi for that time with that broken bone in his leg, they never missed a beat. This has been a very, very impressive Capitals team that has proven if you want to retool, you can do it as long as you make the right adjustments and you have some kids like Connor McMichael and Protas develop in the organization with some free agents added to the mix. You too can succeed in today's NHL by retooling.
Yeah, and having a great coach. And I'll be honest, Jacob Chychrun is from here. He was born in Boca Raton. His dad's become a good friend of mine. And I never really understood why Ottawa didn't want him. I think it was a money deal more than anything. Jacob wanted to stay in Ottawa. He was on record saying that. They're from there. You've probably figured out long before me, because you're far smarter than me. We got to stop thinking about these things because it doesn't always make sense. You know what I mean? The player movement and transactions and all the rest.
Yeah, I think, Rod, the thing working against Jacob was the fact that he was injured, and he couldn't stay healthy. I think this season we've seen what he's done by playing in 65 games so far this season. We were just waiting on him to stay healthy throughout a full season, and then he could show his wares. I mean, we look back on him in the Ontario Hockey League, and Jacob Chychrun, guys would rave about him as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid, and what a great physical specimen he was back then. Like that, of course, Jeff, and he really had a leg up. He was a man amongst boys way back when, and I think that physical prowess that he had has always been there. In fact, if you're going to, split hairs, you might say, man, is he just too fit? Because he's been hurt an awful lot. But this season, we've seen him stay healthy, and there's no doubt he's made a huge difference on the back end for the Caps.
By the way, like your show, ours has themes that run through it. We don't necessarily plan them, but they just happen. And, Sid tonight with a point in Tampa for Pittsburgh breaks Gretzky's record of point a game for 20 consecutive seasons. Wayne had 19. And there are some people down here, as you know, Scott, there's a lot of NHL fans here, that were upset when PK Subban said Sidney Crosby's top 3 all-time NHL players. It's a lot of older people here, by the way. A lot of Howe fans and Gretzky fans, Gretzky fans for sure, and Orr fans. But I'm thinking maybe Sid is in the top 3. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you can make that case, Rod. I mean, I've talked to some modern-day NHLers, and they have told me, yeah, not only is he top 10 all-time, but he's top 5 all-time. Could we push the case for top 3? I think you probably could. What has he not done that maybe others have done? I mean, obviously, you put 99 right there at the top. I think Mario would come into the consideration. And look, I mean, Mario's detriment, again, getting back to injuries, of course, and, battling through the challenges he had with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and such. He had a lot going on for sure. That was the only thing that would ever seemingly slow a guy like Mario down. I think that, Crosby checks off all the boxes. He's had team success. He's won everything individually that you'd want to do. He's had moments like scoring the golden goal in Vancouver in 2010. I mean, I'm not sure what else Sidney Crosby could do to vouch for himself. Not only that, but still playing as well as he is now, Rod, at this age, a point per game, not slowing down. I mean, he's done everything that's ever been asked of him. And look, we remember what kind of a phenom he was back in Rimouski in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League way back when. I would say he's lived up to that and more based upon what he's done, team success, individual success. I think you could make that case for top 3 all time, much to the chagrin of some of the snowbirds down there.
Well, that's my point, is we need to have these debates and not get upset, okay? Because I did an event in October with Lorne Mulliken, who was the head coach in Chicago, as you know, and an assistant in Pittsburgh. And when I asked him who's the greatest player he ever saw, it's Mario. Coached against him, I think coached with him or, coached him. But again, let's not get upset, because people get very upset about the Bobby Orr. People here today have got upset about the Bobby Orr thing. I'm like, come on, there's no right answer. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's literally
I was going to say the same thing. There really are no wrong answers. When you're talking about players that are as great as the ones we're discussing here, there really are no wrong answers. One day you might say Mario. The next day you might say Bobby Orr's in the top 3. Heck, I've heard people talk about Nick Lidstrom and how Nick Lidstrom is not only top 10. Maybe a guy like that should be top 5 at the very least, with what he did with all the Norris trophies on the back end and the Stanley Cups with the Red Wings too. So again, I mean, I've always said, Rod, we all like vitamin C. You get it in apples, you get it in oranges, depends on what day it is.
Ted in Red Deer's watching. He says, hey, Scott, can you make a call on the wild card teams? Maybe the Habs, hopefully. I don't think you're real big on predictions, but he asked. So what do you think's going to happen?
Well, I think it'd be a great story, obviously. A little selfish up here to see Ottawa and Montreal make the playoffs. I called Ottawa before the season began. I called Travis Green. I was going to call him Trent Green. Here comes Kurt Warner. No, Travis Green, I called to win the Jack Adams Award. I don't think that's going to happen, because the guy we talked about earlier, Spencer Carberry, I think ultimately is going to win that award this season, the Jack Adams Award. I think Montreal's in a good spot right now. I think the only thing the Rangers have going for them right now, Rod, the way I can see it, is all the regulation wins they've got, right? They've got 31 are W's. So if they should end up in a tie with any of those competitors in and around them in the Eastern Conference playoff push, Rangers win all the tiebreakers hands down. But they've got a lot less games left to play on their schedule. So I think Montreal's got a golden opportunity here. I've already got Ottawa in, so I'm liking their chances. I mean, I thought Columbus got away with one last night, right? I think the Cal Palmieri goal probably should have counted in the end. I was on Patrick Waugh's side with wondering what the deal was. But I think when it's all said and done, I think Montreal's got a golden opportunity because the Islanders have been hard hit by injuries. We know that they're offensively challenged at the best of times. Columbus, other than last night and getting the 2 points at Long Island, have been struggling a little bit here lately. Rangers are going to run out of time. So I do like Ottawa and Montreal to hang on for the wild cards in the East.
There you go, folks. Well, and Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes in and he says, I would love Calgary versus Winnipeg. Of course you would, because that would mean the Flames would get in. What's awesome about this is Gary Bettman said it last week. The playoffs have started. We don't need a play-in tournament because it started. Just look what's going on in Calgary, man. Nobody saw this coming. It's enlivened a lot of markets that we didn't think would be this time of year.
It's been fun to watch. I mean, Calgary's been a great story. The 3 games they've got in hand on a team like St. Louis could bode well. I look at Vancouver, Rod, and I even look at like last night's comeback victory in New Jersey, too. I mean, you score late in the final minute. You know, you outlast the Devils last night to win it. Demko's back. Again, we don't know, Rod, do we, how long they can go with Demko before, unfortunately, the injury bug pops up again. That's been his history. But maybe all they need now is a couple of good weeks of Demko to get them into the postseason tournament. Lankinen's been a godsend for carrying them this far as well. And, boy, what more can we say about Quinn Hughes? I mean, the guy is not 100% healthy, and yet the guy's playing 31 minutes and 38 seconds last night in that victory at the Rock in Newark. And it's just amazing to see him have to miss the 4 Nations, miss that time coming off that tournament, and then jump right back in and play 30, 31 minutes per night. It's phenomenal. I mean, right now, Werenski, I think, has fallen back because the Jackets have struggled of late. So when we're talking about the Norris Trophy favorite or favorites, I think it goes Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes right behind, and then Zach Werenski number 3.
Okay, lastly, Scott, the real fun part. I know you like your classic rock and hair bands. I know you like the Dallas Cowboys. I know you like the CFL. You must like the Blue Jays. You're a Toronto guy. I'm just taking opinions here. What's your outlook for the Bluebirds, Canada's team, as we get ready to open the season Thursday?
Well, if they stay healthy, I mean, I guess every team can say if they stay healthy. And I mean, you look at the Yankees and obviously hard hit by some veteran guys and missing Garrett Cole the way that they're going to is really going to hurt them as well. So to answer your question, I mean, this right now I think is on a knife's edge. I mean, for the Blue Jays, it could be a really good season. It could be a very disappointing season. I'll be interested as everybody is based upon Shatkins in the comments last week. I talk about Shapiro, of course, but Shatkins as a combination in the front office has been amazing to watch how they've not had any playoff success. And here they are, Rod, 10 years in, and we're still talking about franchise-type players who remain unsigned. This is going to be a real pivotal season. Either it works out well and we see Shatkins continue on beyond this season, or we see Shapiro probably on the outside looking in, because after all that reconstruction on the Rogers Center has been completed. Congratulations to Mark for that. But this team has to make the playoffs, and this team has to have success. Again, whether or not they can get Guerrero and or Bichette extended, that still remains to be seen. So to answer your question, I like the starting staff. I think the bullpen is solid. And I think if they get a resurgence from a guy like Bichette, and if they have George Springer certainly have a much better regular season than he did last season, a much better regular season than he's coming off in the Grapefruit League. I think Toronto Blue Jays will be just fine, especially given the fact that the Yankees have come back down to earth just a little bit because of the injuries.
You and producer Clark are starting to up my optimism on the Blue Jays, because I wasn't that excited. I saw George Springer play center field here the other day. We were in Dunedin watching the final game of spring training. Made that diving catch. He looked like the George Springer of old, but the fans around me were worried he was going to get hurt, you know. But you've given me reason for optimism, Scott. So let me just say that on Vladdy, do you think they should just open the checkbook? Because that's what we see in the other leagues, or not?
Well, look, we've talked about it, and on the surface, by virtue of what we've read, Rod, and all the insiders report, over the course of a lengthy contract, you're talking about a difference of $50 million. $50 million over the course of a contract that's going to pay him in the neighborhood of 500 plus is really not that much. I mean, if you can bridge that sort of gap, why not? We've been led to believe that, some of it's on layaway, like Shohei Ohtani, or perhaps Vladdy says, I don't want to have my money like Ohtani on layaway. I want to have my money more immediate. There's got to be some sort of a gap that they can bridge here, because when you've got the difference reportedly of $50 million on a $500 million plus contract, it seems asinine to think that can't get done. But again, it gets back to what we talked about. It's Shatkins and whether or not that front office can finally come through.
Fun talking Blue Jays with you, Scott, and NHL, of course. Keep up the great work and enjoy the playoffs.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Rod.
SiriusXM NHL Radio's Scott Laughlin, who last year predicted a Winnipeg, Florida Stanley Cup final, and he might be ahead of his time, a year ahead of schedule. We'll be right back. We've got a sports update and then viewer takeover the rest of the way. We're live on the Game Plus TV network, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.